He was the boy who never got to grow up. The man who gave the world the moonwalk, the sequined glove, and a sound that changed music forever. Yet behind the platinum records, the sold-out stadiums, and the million-dollar smile, Michael Jackson was slowly falling apart. He built a kingdom of light and fantasy, but its foundations were made of isolation, paranoia, and pain. The same fame that made him a legend also destroyed the person beneath the crown. This is not just the story of success and scandal. It's the story of a genius consumed by the very machine he created. The question is, how did the most beloved entertainer on earth become its most tragic figure? Michael Joseph Jackson was born on August 29, 1958, in Gary, Indiana, a small industrial town far removed from the glittering stages that would later define his life. He was the seventh of 9 children in a working-class family living in a modest 2-bedroom house. His father, Joseph Jackson, was a steelworker with strict discipline and ambitions that extended beyond the factory floor. He saw music not as art, but as an escape, a way out of poverty. From the moment Michael could sing, his childhood stopped being his own. Joe Jackson formed the Jackson 5, turning his sons into performers before they were even teenagers. For Michael, the stage became both a playground and a battlefield. He sang lead with a voice that carried innocence and raw emotion, and danced with an energy no one had ever seen from a child. But behind that brilliance was fear. His father's rehearsals were brutal, his punishments swift. Michael later recalled being beaten for missing a note, for stepping out of rhythm, for simply being tired. The applause of strangers became his only safe place. As the Jackson 5 rose through Motown in the late 1960s, Michael became the frontman of America's new obsession. At 11, he was performing before screaming crowds. At 12, he was topping charts. At 13, he was already a superstar. But that fame came at a cost: his adolescence. While other children went to school dances or football games, Michael was rehearsing under fluorescent lights, learning how to please an audience before he learned how to be himself. His world had narrowed to one command: perform perfectly, no matter the price. By the mid-1970s, Michael Jackson was no longer just the prodigy of a family band. He was becoming a force of his own. After years of singing Motown hits written by others, he began to crave creative control. When the Jackson 5 left Motown for Epic Records in 1975, Michael's transformation quietly began. He studied every movement of James Brown, every phrase of Diana Ross, and every studio technique of Quincy Jones. He wasn't content to be good. He wanted to reinvent what pop could sound like. In 1979, Off the Wall marked the first step. With songs like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough and Rock With You, Michael fused funk, disco, and soul into something entirely new. It wasn't just a hit album, it was the birth of a modern pop. His falsetto floated effortlessly over grooves that made people dance and dream at the same time. The record sold over 20 million copies worldwide and earned him his first Grammy. But for Michael, it was only the beginning. Then came Thriller in 1982. No one, not even Michael himself, could have predicted what was about to happen. Produced again with Quincy Jones, Thriller became the best-selling album of all time, more than 70 million copies worldwide. Every track felt like an event: Billie Jean Beat It, Human Nature. The music videos were cinematic revolutions, and the moonwalk, first revealed during the 1983 Motown 25 special, became an immortal moment in television history. Michael wasn't just a pop star anymore. He was the definition of global fame. He broke racial barriers on MTV, became a fashion icon, and turned concerts into near-religious experiences. He was adored in Tokyo, Paris, Johannesburg, and Rio. Children fainted when he appeared on stage. Adults wept. For the first time, one man united the planet through rhythm and spectacle. But while the world saw a phenomenon inside the man behind the sequined glove, the seeds of isolation were already growing. By the late 1980s, Michael Jackson had ascended to a level no other artist had ever reached. He was not simply famous, he was mythic. Bad, 1987. proved that Thriller was no accident. It sold tens of millions, produced 5 consecutive #1 singles, and turned his every move into news. Stadiums filled with 100,000 people came not just to hear him sing, but to witness a phenomenon. His choreography, lighting, and costumes turned concerts into cinematic events. Every gesture seemed calculated, every silence intentional. Brands and corporations lined up to borrow his magic. The Pepsi partnership, launched with a dazzling commercial in 1984, made him a global advertising icon. He earned tens of millions of dollars from endorsements, tours, and royalties. Even the smallest details of his life, his pets, his clothes, his surgeries, became tabloid gold. His home Neverland Ranch was a 700-acre fantasy world, complete with a zoo, an amusement park, and a private cinema. To outsiders, it looked like paradise. To Michael, it was an attempt to build the childhood he never had. Yet at the height of his glory, something began to shift. The face that once glowed with youth and energy grew paler, thinner, more sculpted. Rumors about plastic surgery and skin bleaching became relentless. He said he suffered from vitiligo, a condition that destroys skin pigment, but the public rarely believed him. His voice, once full of power, now trembled in interviews, and his laughter sounded rehearsed, surrounded by advisors, bodyguards, and hangers-on. Michael was becoming a prisoner in the empire he built. Still, his art continued to transcend. In 1991, Dangerous introduced a new era of sound industrial beats, new jack swing and socially charged lyrics like Black or White and Heal the World. He wanted to inspire unity, to turn pain into purpose. But for the first time, critics began to wonder, was the king of pop beginning to fade beneath the weight of his own perfection? By the early 1990s, the perfection that once defined Michael Jackson had become impossible to sustain. Fame had isolated him. Wealth had distorted his world, and the line between fantasy and reality began to blur. The first cracks appeared in 1993 when a 13-year-old boy accused him of child molestation. The accusation stunned the world. How could the same man who sang about love, unity, and innocence be capable of such a thing? The media erupted. Cameras surrounded Neverland. Every gesture, every word, every photograph was dissected as evidence of guilt or innocence. Michael denied everything. He called the allegations a terrible lie and claimed he was the victim of extortion. The police raided his home, seizing videotapes, photographs, and letters. None revealed criminal evidence, yet the damage was irreversible. His image, once pure and untouchable, was now contaminated by suspicion. Under immense pressure and emotional collapse, he agreed to a multi-million-dollar civil settlement to avoid a drawn-out trial. Though the settlement included no admission of guilt for many, the payment looked like confession. The scandal marked a turning point. Sponsors withdrew. Radio stations hesitated to play his songs. The same media that once celebrated him now circled like vultures. Behind the scenes, Michael's health began to decline. He suffered from chronic insomnia, anxiety, and dependency on painkillers. His marriage to Lisa Marie Presley in 1994 seemed like a symbolic attempt to repair his public image, two icons joining forces, but it collapsed within 2 years. Still, he tried to reclaim control through his art. History, past, present, and future, 5, was both confession and defiance. Songs like Scream and They Don't Care About Us channeled anger and paranoia into anthems. His lyrics no longer celebrated joy. They defended survival. Yet the world had changed. The boy who once sang about peace was now a man pleading for understanding. For the first time, his audience was divided. In 2003, a documentary titled Living with Michael Jackson aired on British television. What was meant to humanize him instead ignited the fire that consumed the rest of his life. The world watched as he held hands with a young boy, spoke softly about sleeping in the same bed with children, and insisted it was an act of love, not abuse. Whatever sympathy remained in the public began to fracture. Within months, new charges emerged: multiple counts of child molestation, conspiracy, and administration of alcohol to minors. The 2005 trial became a global spectacle. Every headline, every courtroom detail was broadcast in real time. Michael, frail and dressed in white, walked into court like a ghost of his former self. The same cameras that once adored him now hunted him. He claimed innocence again, saying he had been betrayed by people seeking money and fame. After months of testimony and scrutiny, the jury found him not guilty on all counts. But even acquittal couldn't save his reputation. He had been tried not just in court, but in the court of public opinion, and there he had already lost. Financially, he was collapsing. Neverland Ranch, once his personal utopia, became a haunting monument to excess. Maintenance costs soared, and debts piled up to hundreds of millions. He sold his prized catalog shares and retreated into exile, moving from Bahrain to Ireland to Las Vegas, searching for peace and relevance. His physical health deteriorated. The once unstoppable performer now relied on prescription drugs just to sleep. Friends described him as fragile, paranoid, and haunted by the past. By the time he announced his This Is It concert series in 2009, the excitement felt bittersweet. The world hoped for a comeback, but those close to him saw desperation, a man trying to rewrite his ending. Behind the choreography and rehearsals, his body was failing. On June 25, 2009, Michael Jackson was found unresponsive in his Los Angeles home. The cause, acute propofol intoxication administered by his personal physician. He was 50 years old. The news stunned the world. Crowds gathered outside hospitals, strangers wept in the streets, and the internet froze under the weight of grief. The king of pop was gone, and with him ended an era of innocence and spectacle. His death wasn't just a tragedy. It was the final act of a life consumed by the very pursuit of perfection he had once embodied. The days following Michael Jackson's death felt like the end of a global dream. For weeks, the world stood still. Radio stations played his music non-stop. Candlelight vigils appeared in every major city, and millions tuned in to watch his televised memorial at the Staples Center. He was mourned not just as a musician, but as a myth. Yet beneath the tears and nostalgia lay a deeper unease, the sense that the same culture that built him had also destroyed him. In the years that followed, the debate over his legacy only grew louder. Some saw him as a tragic victim, a gentle soul broken by a ruthless industry and a predatory media. Others could not forget the accusations, the unsettling details, the contradictions. The documentaries, the lawsuits, and the renewed allegations kept resurrecting old wounds. Each revelation reopened the question: can you separate the art from the artist? But beyond the scandals and speculation, one truth remains undeniable. Michael Jackson transformed popular culture forever. He redefined the scale of performance, turned music videos into an art form, and broke racial barriers on global television. His influence can be heard in nearly every major pop and R&B artist who followed. Even in controversy, his artistry refuses to fade. Yet his story is more than a tale of fame and downfall. It is a warning about what happens when a person becomes a product. From childhood, Michael was molded, marketed, and magnified until there was nothing left of the boy inside. He built a fantasy world to escape reality, only to find that fame made escape impossible. The cheers that once lifted him up became echoes in an empty mansion. Today, fans still gather at Neverland's gates, leaving flowers notes and whispered apologies. His music still plays at weddings, clubs, and protests. It's as if the world can't decide whether to forgive him or thank him. Perhaps both are true. Perhaps that is his greatest tragedy, that in giving everything to be loved, he lost the ability to be understood. Michael Jackson's life is a mirror, one that reflects both the brilliance and the darkness of human ambition. He was proof that talent can transcend race, language, and geography, but also that fame can devour the soul that creates it. His voice moved millions, yet, in the silence between songs, he was alone. The boy who sang of love and unity became a man surrounded by lawyers, doctors, and shadows. His story reminds us that greatness without peace is a fragile illusion. For every artist chasing the heights he once reached, there is a hidden cost. The pursuit of perfection, the hunger for adoration, and the need to stay on top. These are the same forces that shaped Michael's genius and carved his downfall. In the end, he became both victim and architect of his destiny, a man who tried to heal the world while failing to heal himself. And so his legacy remains suspended between wonder and sorrow. We dance to his music, but we also flinch at his pain. We celebrate his art, but we mourn the child who was never allowed to be one. Perhaps the real lesson of Michael Jackson's life is not in the records he broke or the awards he won, but in the quiet truth that no amount of applause can fill an empty heart. Because behind the moonwalk and the spotlight, behind the perfection and the power, there was always a boy still searching for a place to simply be loved.